I'd like to discuss the January transfer window. However, before I do, a word of warning. This video is going to contain elements of a whingy and moany Gio. Yes, I know, I can hear you already. Yes, I can hear you. What's new? We put up with that Gio in every video. I get it, alright, but there's going to be some negatives. However, there's also going to be some positives. There's going to be some elements of hopeful Gio in this video. And I bet you didn't see that one coming, did you? But this video is possibly going to be a little bit bitty, but hopefully you can stick with me, and by the end of the video it makes a little bit of sense. But one thing's for sure, you're getting my honest opinion on the good and the bad of the West Ham January transfer window. And I'm going to begin by summarising it. I don't think it was a disaster. I don't even think it was a bad window for West Ham. I don't think it was a good one either though. It could have been a lot better, but I don't think it was that bad for West Ham either. As far as I see it, we lost one player and we gained one player. In terms of players David Moyes will actually use at West Ham, I think one left and one arrived. The squad is thinner. The squad is lighter. More players left than arrived at West Ham. Fact. But in terms of players that David Moyes will actually utilise, Craig Dawson. Yes, Ekwa left. Ashby was sold. Randolph left. Connor Coventry has been loaned out. But would David Moyes actually use any of those in the second half of the season? I'm not convinced. Certainly, if we were safe in the Premier League with a couple of games to go, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? They might have got some minutes. If we won the first leg of the Conference League 3-0, they might have got some minutes in the second leg. I'm not even sure they would have done. But barring things like that, in terms of meaningful minutes, I'm not convinced we would have seen Randolph or Ekwa or Ashby or Coventry. We struggled to give them minutes in the first half of the season, and that was with a League Cup game against Blackburn. That was with us wrapping up the group stage of the Conference League with one game spare. Even then, they still didn't get loads of minutes. Now we're into the business end of the season, they would have got even less. So yes, they've left the club. But only really Craig Dawson is left where I think actually he had a part to play under David Moyes in the second half of the season. And we've signed Danny Ings. So I think we're net zero in terms of squad players that Moyes will utilise. And just like the same token of gesture, just like ruling out Ekwa, I'm ruling out Luis Yao. We've signed him at the start of January. He's gone straight into the under-21s. By the sounds of it, he's starting really, really well down there, and he's looked quite good in his performances so far. But I don't expect to see him. I think the earliest we will see Luis Yao is next season, at the very earliest. In terms of minutes under David Moyes this season, I don't think he'll get any. Even if there's injuries at centre-back, I would be shocked if we see Luis Yao coming in. So I'm going to rule that one out, just like I'm ruling out Harrison Ashby as well. So players David Moyes will actually use, I think we've lost one, but I think we've gained one as well. And I'm kind of okay with that. I would have liked to have seen West Ham do more. I think it's risky to do nothing at the end of that January transfer window. I was expecting nothing, don't get me wrong. I was expecting nothing to happen. I'm still disappointed. I'm still surprised to some extent that we didn't take advantage of the loan market, especially at the centre-back area. I think we're a little bit light there. Craig Dawson's left. Recently we've seen us using three centre-backs, not just a back three. Previously under David Moyes we've seen Aaron Creswell usually, and there we've seen sometimes we've played Ben Johnson in there. Usually there's a full-back either side of that back three. But in the last couple of games now, there hasn't been. It's been three traditional centre-backs. And we've only got four at the club. And we can't really rely on any of them in terms of form and or injuries. Gerd, Bona, Zuma, Kerr. We can't rely on them being fit between now and the end of the season. And we can't rely on them being on form between now and the end of the season. I think it's very risky to only have those four senior centre-backs when we are playing 3 per game at the minute. And yes, Creswell and Johnson can fill in there, but it completely changes the dynamic of the defence. Let's say Ogbonna got injured, so we had to play Zuma, Agerd and Aaron Creswell. That changes the dynamic completely. Agerd's gone from left centre-back into centre-back, but you almost lose his runs, you lose his passing attributes. We've seen him play right centre-back in a back four next to Ogbonna and look really uncomfortable in possession. We lost his ability on the ball, and he looks like a real Rolls Royce of a centre-back, by the way. I think if Agerd was fit all season, I think we'd have a few more points on board and we'd be away from that relegation battle. But he hasn't been. So the fact that we didn't bring in a centre-back is a little bit concerning and a little bit surprising as well. However, part of the reason I'm okay with our business, or lack of business, is because we did our spend up in the summer. If you take the January transfer window and combine it with the summer transfer window in terms of spending, West Ham are still third. Only Chelsea and Man United have spent more than the Hammers across the two windows. So while you see the likes of Bournemouth and Southampton, and don't get me wrong, it does make me a little bit nervous and gives me a little bit of anxiety over the last 48 hours watching teams around us, bar Everton, strengthening. You see Forest, you see Leicester bringing in Harry Suter, Bournemouth, Southampton, they're all bringing in players and we weren't doing anything. It does make me a little bit nervous because, like I said, I do think there's areas in our team that could have done with strengthening. However, I think the reason for lack of strengthening is because of the circumstances we're in, which is quite ironic. I think the reason we need to spend money is because of where we are in a relegation battle, but I think the reason we didn't spend is because of where we are. In a relegation battle, you almost couldn't make it up, could you? But I think everything we've done in January has had one eye on possibly getting relegated. I'll explain why in just a second, but before I do, can I just quickly point you in the direction of our Patreon, because it's the first of the month, which means it's the best time to join. If you want additional Hammers Chat videos, so earlier on today we did our Derby County player ratings. Hammerlytics went up today as well, where Charlie speaks to Jack and they look at the game from a different perspective. You saw Jack on the Transfer Deadline show last night to get a little example of the content he brings. We've got my opposition prediction coming up this week. We've got a Q&A with Jack Collison coming up this week as well. Later on in the month, we've got a Q&A with a former West Ham United player, another former West Ham United player. There's loads and loads of content, but it's the best way to support the channel, and it's from £3.60 per month. There's loads of other perks, giveaways, discount at our online store. Link is in the description if you fancy checking out patreon.com/HammersChat. I'll put the link in the pinned comments as well as a brief description. But thank you to everybody who does go over and just check out, and a big thank you to everybody who signs up as well. It massively supports us. If we didn't have Patreon, we wouldn't upload one video a day on each channel. We wouldn't be able to. It's as simple as that. So thank you to the patrons. Now back to it. Believe it or not, that part was that part there, that was the positive side of things, because I've got a little bit of a moaning groan here, right? But just hear me out. I can't help but feel that a lot of our transfer activity, or lack of transfer activity perhaps, in the January transfer window was with one eye on the possibility of being relegated from the Premier League this season. Preparation for relegation. And we're going to start with the signing of Danny Ings. Now, I'm not backtracking on this. I think it's a good signing. I think he's a good player. I think he'll score goals this season. And I feel more confident that we are going to survive relegation with Danny Ings in the team than it was prior to his arrival. However, if we were to stay up, what would Ings' role at West Ham be next season? Second, third choice striker? A bit like he is now. Nothing would really change, and he's definitely a really good option and asset to have in the Premier League next season. However, if West Ham did get relegated this summer, what would his role be then? Well, he'd be first choice striker in the Championship. Scamacca would be sold, and Antonio likely to be sold anyway, regardless of what league we're in. He's made it clear that he has a desire to leave West Ham, so that would mean Ings would be our number one striker in the Championship. And what a fantastic option that would be, by the way. If we were to get relegated, the first thing you want to make sure is you've got somebody capable of scoring 20 plus goals. Ings is that player. Mubama waiting in the wings as well. The striker solution would almost be sorted. I think Ings is a purchase for today and for next season, regardless of what league we're in. Now, I know what the counter argument is. Charlie made it last night on the Transfer Deadline Day show, which is, would West Ham really sign a player and give him 125 grand a week? We can't afford to give him that in the Championship. I agree. But there's clauses in contracts. Every West Ham player will have a clause in his contract with an automatic wage reduction in case of relegation. Man United players have that clause in their contracts. They're never going to get relegated, but still in their contracts. If we get relegated, your wages reduced by Y%. And I would like to think that given the circumstances we were in when negotiating with Danny Ings, we were already in a relegation battle. Actually, I don't know. I was waiting to say the club aren't that daft. They probably are. But I'd like to think perhaps when negotiating Danny Ings' contract, they put a higher percentage in there than usual. Regardless, if we got relegated, Danny Ings would not be on 125 grand a week in Championship. I think he'd be a great asset. But the bigger example is Conor Coventry. I'm going to ask you a question. At the start of January, Conor Coventry's contract was running out. He had 6 months to go. It was going to expire this summer. The club had a 1-year option in there, which we've activated it, so it now has 18 months to go. If West Ham were in no danger of getting relegated, if we were 9th in the table right now, relegation wasn't even a topic, would we have extended Conor Coventry's contract? I don't think we would have done. I think we'd have sold him in January. I think he'd have gone the same way that Darren Randolph's gone and Harrison Ashby's gone, which is contract running out. Let's get rid of him. Let's cash in, save them. In Randolph's case, we've saved £1 million on his wages. Cash in on Harrison Ashby's contract's running out. I think we'd have done the same with Conor Coventry. I think we'd have thought he's probably not good enough to make it in the Premier League. He's not going to be here next season, so let's get whatever we can for him now. And it would have made sense. It would have made sense. But the fact that we triggered that option and then immediately loaned him out to Rotherham for the rest of the season makes me think we've done that just in case we get relegated. The only argument you can make is it's to retain his transfer value. But would his price really go up compared to whatever he's worth today? Let's say we could get £500,000 for Conor Coventry today. I think he's probably going to be worth the same in the summer with a year to go on his contract at West Ham. The only reason I can see for us doing that is in case we get relegated. Conor Coventry, judging on him today, does he have a part to play in West Ham next season if we're in the Premier League? I don't think so. I'm not sure. I don't think he does. But if we got relegated, then suddenly yes, Conor Coventry becomes a really good player to have in that squad. Him and Flynn Downs and Thomas Souček in centre midfield, really good options for the Championship. And that triggering of that contract just made me think we are preparing a little bit for relegation here. And like I said, you could argue that that is actually a wise thing for West Ham to do. It would be completely naive to bury your head in the sand and say, well, there's no danger of relegation, so let's just carry on as normal. But I think the lack of activity in the January transfer window would insinuate they're aware that we're banging a relegation battle, because we are heading into another major rebuild. I covered it a few weeks ago on the channel about how many players' contracts are expiring this coming summer. We've dealt with some of them now. Conor Coventry's has been dealt with. Craig Dawson's been dealt with. Darren Randolph's been dealt with. Harrison Ashby's been dealt with. But there's still some remaining. Fabianski, Ogbonna, at the moment, Aaron Creswell's. Rumours were that we triggered that 1 year extension. We're yet to see it. Lanzini, Soufal, Declan Rice is going to be leaving. Michail Antonio's a possibility. He just told us last week he wants to leave practically. So it's possible that he's leaving as well. That's 7 players I've just listed there. And that's without selling anybody else. 7 players. That's another rebuild job coming up in the summer. Regardless of what league we're in, there's a rebuild job needed in the summer. David Moyes moaned back in September about having to buy so many players in the summer and having to integrate all these new players and faces into the squad, and was causing problems. But what he didn't do was rectify that. Last January he could have brought in a couple of those players, reduced the amount of players he needed to buy in the summer, but he chose not to. In the summer he complained about it. Okay, let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay, it's probably a bit more difficult than you realised. We come round to January this year, knowing that you're going to be bringing in 7 players at least this summer. He's chosen not to bring any in January. He's doing the same thing again. We're making the same mistakes again, which is we'll just pretend nothing is happening. In the summer we'll bring in 7 players, and come September you know what we're going to hear. Well, we had to bring in 7 players, but well, January you could have brought players in, but you've chosen not to. You brought in Danny Ings and that is it. Like I said, I get it. I don't think it's a disaster of a window, but it's certainly not a good transfer window for West Ham. It is definitely not, because I'm aware we did majority of our spending in the summer. Like I said, we're still the 3rd highest spenders. There's advantages and disadvantages to doing that. The biggest advantage is our players have already started to settle in. Some have already settled in. So while Forest and Southampton are bringing players in, they've got to go through that bedding in process. We've already done that. We've done the hard part. Paqueta's definitely settling in. Aguerd looks suited. Simple as that. Hopefully Skamaka's settling in. So we've done the hard part. Those teams have to go and do that. So we should have an advantage on them. The disadvantage, or the advantage for those teams, is they're rectifying their problematic areas. Going into the January transfer window, I'd imagine, well, in my opinion, looking at it, would have liked a right wing back. We're playing wing backs now without a proper right wing back there. It would have been nice to purchase one of them. But Southampton, for example, has come into the transfer window thinking we need a striker, we're struggling for goals. They've rectified it. They've had some money. They're able to go and sort their problematic areas, which is something we haven't really been able to do because we spent the bulk of the money in the summer. So there is advantages and disadvantages. Overall, I think we've got a good squad here. I don't think keeping this West Ham team in the Premier League is a difficult job. I'd expect a decent manager to be able to keep us up relatively comfortably Do I think we'll stay up? I'm not too sure, and I'm not avoiding the question. It's because I keep changing my mind. You can ask me on the Monday, do you think West Ham will survive relegation? I'll say, yeah, we're going to survive because of A, B, C. I think X, Y, Z will get relegated. But you could ask me on Thursday, and despite the fact that we've not played a game, my opinion will change. I'll say, actually, do you know what? I think we will get relegated. I keep changing my mind on it. But one thing I haven't changed my mind on is the fact that the January transfer window was an opportunity for West Ham and every other team to strengthen, but pretty much every other team bar Everton chose to strengthen in that window. And yes, we've signed Danny Ings, but Danny Ings got injured after about 20 seconds against Everton. He's been injured for more than a week now. The club have known for 8 days Danny Ings was going to be out for a month, and in that 8 days between getting told he's out and the window closing, we did nothing else. Yes, we supposedly bid for Trent Murphy. I made my feelings clear on that last night. I don't want to get into it again. So while I'm uncertain about West Ham surviving relegation, one thing I am certain of was that transfer window was an opportunity to strengthen, increase the probability of surviving relegation, and I don't think we've taken full advantage of it. Does it mean we'll get relegated? No, not necessarily. David Moyes is apparently happy with the squad he's got. I understand that. Like I said, I think it's a good squad, but I think he could have been happier. There was an opportunity there, and we haven't really taken it, and it worries me quite a lot, actually. It's made me a little bit more nervous for the rest of the season than needed be. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the January transfer window. I'm going to disappear now, but please leave your comments in the comment section of this video with your thoughts on the January transfer window. If you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it. Helps the channel out. Subscribe to Hammer's Chat. Catch you in a bit.